what's going on, the economic pressure or the economic war that Donald Trump is waging on Iran, and he has decided yesterday, said it's called, we are gonna crush their economy and destroy their economy. That means that they're gonna force Iran into some sort of capitulation. But you have something else to tell us about
Mhm.
your new article. And what is that, and what is the importance of that with the current conflict between the two sides?
Well, it is a bombshell. We revealed at our channel, Transition Protocol, our young channel, Larry and I. I talked about it with the judge as well. And I'm talking to you and to our audience. It is a certified bombshell because the confirmation came directly from the office of leader Moshtaba Khamenei, and he passed the information back to the Pakistanis, which until literally yesterday were the mediators between Iran and the US. And we learned this from Pakistani intelligence sources. And obviously, we asked for reconfirmation. We established the chain of events in detail. This was reconfirmed. So essentially, for you, Nima, and for all of you out there, is another graphic example of a mafioso regime. In a nutshell, the president of the United States used a back channel that already existed, established 3 months ago, roughly, by Tulsi Gabbard when she was still in the government as director of national intelligence, under authorization of Trump and J.D. Vance. So Tulsi established this back channel to talk to Ahmad Vahidi, the head of the IRGC, via Iraqi Kurdistan, via Nirshivan Barzani, the president of the Kurdistan government in northern Iraq. So they established a secret line, one of those codified, encrypted lines. That will be between the White House and Barzani. And from Barzani to Vahidi in Tehran. There's a very good connection between several members of the IRGC and the Iraqi Kurdistan government and the Barzani clan, which essentially runs more than half of Iraqi Kurdistan. The other clan is the Talibani clan, based in Suleimania. Barzani clan based in Irbil. And as many of you may know, Irbil is a nest of vipers. Everybody and his neighbor is there. MI6, CIA, Mossad, you name it. But of course, it's we can even say that it's a sort of a semi-American territory. And the Kurds, of course, they hedge, of course. They have serious problems with Baghdad. But of course, they keep all their options open. And of course, they also have their own direct channel with the Iranians. So Trump, this time, he used this back channel that already existed. It was dormant or nothing happened for 3 months. So he used this channel via Barzani and ask Barzani to relay a proposition to Vahidi directly. And that's the killer. Basically, a bribing operation. The White House wanted to bribe the head of the IRGC and other members of the Iranian leadership, most of them military, on a divide and rule basis. British Empire copying from the Roman Empire, to provoke a fracture at the top of the Iranian government. So we can imagine, and I'm sure Nima, you would be the first to say that Vahidi would say absolutely not, which is exactly what he did. But not only he said absolutely not to Barzani, he obviously had to communicate this to the top leadership. So this means the Supreme National Security Council, Moshe Rezai, and it came up there to the leader himself as well. So everybody was aware. And Vahid, according to what we learned later from our Pakistani mediators and what they heard from the office of the leader, Vahidi said, if I did that, that would be worse than treason. I could never even contemplate the idea, but it was a lot of money. Apparently, billions of dollars to be shared by maybe 4, 5, 6 very high-ranking IRGC officers. And the most extraordinary thing, which proves once again that, in fact, it proves the cultural stupidity out of bounds of the Trump administration. They thought that they could apply the Venezuela playbook to Shiite Iran, which means they don't understand Iranian culture, Shiite culture, morals, code of ethics among Shiites and among top officers in Iran, the concept of resilience, resistance, independence, and the absolute aversion to any sort of bribes, much less betraying their national values to a foreign power. It's obvious, in fact, because this Trump administration is an empire of grifters. It's basically a mafioso operation with different levels of mafia. Trump may be the capo, but there are others as well. So it is just like the mafia because he learned how to conduct his business from a Jewish mafia expert, Roy Cohn. Everything that Trump learned about business and about to do mafioso business, he learned from Roy Cohn. And he applies that not only in his business, but also in politics as well. So the fact that they could not even read the basics about Iran, Shiism, and how the Iranian government and how the Shiite mind works, the Persian mind works, it proves that they are just a bunch of grifters. So the response, obviously, from Vahidi was no. And then, which was something that we finally established yesterday, from the office of leader Mojtaba Khamenei came the authorization to leak that and the response back to the Pakistanis. Because the Pakistanis, they were in the loop as well, because Trump has tried before with Asim Munir. Before this Iraqi Kurdistan gambit, Trump trying to enlist Asim Munir to, can you talk to some IRGC generals or especially Vahidi and see if they will be willing to betray their country for a few $1 billion? And Asim Munir told Trump directly, no way. And they talk on the phone all the time. Trump calls Asim Munir in Pakistan all the time. But until literally yesterday, Pakistan was a mediator between Iran and the United States. So Asim Munir, who's a very smart guy, he will never compromise Pakistan's position and all the hard work that they had before to, install an operation, a regime change style operation side by side with the Americans. So after Asim Munir said no, they used Barzani to talk to Vahidi, and then Vahidi said no. So all this chain of events and this information went back to the Pakistanis, and that's how we learned from the Pakistani mediators and from the office of Asim Munir in Islamabad, in fact, what happened. So is this this absolutely crazy mafioso procedure something that didn't happen before? Of course not. We have the latest mafioso example in the past 24 hours, in fact. First, Trump congratulated himself with Kim Jong-un in North Korea, saying he's my best friend, he's great, we have a great relationship, etc. And after that, what he did, in his own words, Nima, it's published on Truth Social. We asked for $10 billion From whom? South Korea. And what is this? Mafia protection money. So this is the mechanism. It's totally mafia. You get two enemies, North Korea and South Korea, obviously. You talk to one of them and say, okay, you're my guy, it's cool, etc. And then you talk to the other one and say, okay, now I want my money so I can protect you from the other guy. It's a complete mafia operation in a different register, but very similar to the mafia operation, where they use a back channel that was supposed to be a diplomatic channel for extortion, or in this case, for bribing an official from the enemy. So there it is, laid out to all of you how the empire of grifters, also known as the Trump administration, actually works.
Pepe, we had, we know that Donald Trump, it seems that he doesn't see a military solution for what's going on. And that's why you see he's changing his mindset. And you mentioned he desperately trying to talk, because before the report coming from you, we've learned that from the Iraqi Kurdistan, they tried to talk with Iranians to see, is there any sort of difference or fracture within the government, between IRGC and the government,
Yes.
to go there and to manipulate that. But it seems that nothing of that sort is working for Donald Trump.
No, it's
So
not.
what is the option on the table for him today when you see the whole scene of what's going on between the two sides?
Total economic and financial war, which, by the way, many of us already knew it would be the next so-called strategy, because this was being discussed in closed circles at the White House with input from the ghastly Mossad agent, Jared Kushner. In fact, this new strategy is the top two ideologues of this strategy are Jared Kushner and Scott Bessent, former Soros assets. Never forget that. Two absolutely ghastly characters which epitomize the lowest possible denominator, which is the common denominator in the Trump administration. Scott Bessent, basically, he has been saying for a while that he's going to be responsible for throwing 90 million Iranians in the middle of the streets begging for food. This is essentially what he's saying. The total financial, economic strangulation of Iran. Obviously, these idiots don't know how the Iranian economy works and how diversified it is, and how it can find different levels of trade and commerce and financial dealings outside of merely exporting energy, which of course continues at a much lower level. Of course, we have to recognize that. But look at the numbers, for instance, for the first quarter. In the first quarter, which includes 1 month of war, the month of March. The war started on February 28th. So the first quarter, January, February, where was in February, Iran exported and sold a lot of oil because they knew that something will happen. And even during the first months of war, they continued to export oil and gas. It was, if I'm not mistaken, $7.8 billion in the first quarter, which was, compared to the first quarter of the previous year, 150% more. So, of course, in the second quarter, we're going to see a drop, obviously, but not so substantial, because the American blockade leaks. There are petrotankers that are still going back and forth from Strait of Hormuz, even with the American blockade. Most of them go into China. So we can expect a drop. There are different numbers. People are throwing numbers from 600,000, 500,000, 300,000, which is too low. So it's probably around 500,000. So it fell dramatically, but it's still there. And at the same time, Iran is diversifying because they are also exporting oil and gas over land. Very, very important. And if they export from Chabahar, Chabahar is already outside of the area where the Americans are, or far away from where the Americans are. So they can use the China-Iran railway, which is part of the Belt and Road, New Silk Roads. They do swaps with Turkmenistan, gas. They can use the Caspian, you name it. So these channels for Iran in terms of trade and commerce, the Americans cannot suffocate these channels. But something is already happening in terms of extra maximum pressure on Iran's neighbors. And one example is Pakistan. The Americans changed completely their relationship with Pakistan. They are throwing Pakistan under the bus again after the Pakistanis did everything to be a credible mediation channel between Iran and the United States. They are threatening to sanction everybody and his neighbor in Pakistan and in other countries involved in trade and commerce with Iran. So this will affect especially those 6 overland corridors between Pakistan and Iran. And this may affect seriously what China is exporting to Iran via Pakistan, although the Chinese, they don't give a damn about American sanctions or sub-sanctions or secondary sanctions. The Chinese will find a way to dribble it. And all that, by the way, bypasses the US dollar. All that is in petro yuan. It's paid by Iran in petro yuan. So, for instance, the Chinese, whatever they want to export to Iran, it's a lot of stuff. It goes to the port of Gwadar in Balochistan in the Arabian Sea, which is part of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So from Xinjiang, goes all the way to Gwadar. From Gwadar, it goes to the border, Gabd, which is one of the borders between Pakistan and Iran, 89 kilometers only. So the trucks keep going back and forth. And then from this Iran-Pakistan border, they can go all the way anywhere in Iran. So the trucks continue to move. So the Americans cannot interfere with that unless, well, the American way, they're going to start bombing parts of this communication channel, as they already bombed during the war the China-Iran railway. So yes, we can expect hardcore action by the Americans against Pakistan, against this stretch of the New Silk Roads. We can have NATO drones in the Caspian, which is the preferred corridor between Russia and Iran, Astrakhan and Bandar Anzali. So it's going to get really, really hot. So the Iranians must have contingency plans for all these connectivity corridors. But does that prove that the Americans can isolate Iran? No, it doesn't. Which is the theme of my the column that I already published before this latest one about the Trump bribing the IRGC. I wrote a column essentially proving that Iran cannot be isolated from the neighbors and from their trade commercial partners across Eurasia. But of course, Soros asset Besant and Mafia advisor Jared Kushner think that this is what will make Iran fold. And as you know better than anyone, Nima, it's not going to work.